The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. It's your midweek fix for racing news and information. Brought to you by the Championship Racing Network. Now let's head trackside to join your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson.
Of Crossed Flags. I'm Steve West, Matt Nicholson with me, producer John taking care of us, and producer Molly going to help out as well. We appreciate both of them, no doubt about it. We're going to get into this deal that NASCAR just signed with Xfinity here in just a few minutes, but first things first, watching Bowman Gray, I got to admit, I have never seen that facility, much less the track, and certainly haven't seen a race there, but I got to admit, from what I saw, I actually enjoyed this. Now, short track racing is one of those things, Matt, that, you know, especially with this car, we can kind of question how good the quality of the racing is. There was, I'll admit, probably a fairly decent amount of follow the leader once we got into the actual clash. But if you look at something like what Ryan Blaney did, which was start effectively shotgun on the field and work his way all the way up to second, it's really hard to argue that there wasn't the ability to pass and that this was actually quite the spectacle.
Well, you can still tell that aero does play a factor into a lot of things with this car. There is still work that's got to be done to it. I'll say that.
Sure.
But that's what a short track race is supposed to be. There is a vast difference between that stunt they were doing at the Coliseum versus actually running it at a legitimate designated track.
Yeah, and you and I have been very vocal on this in that we questioned, we get the idea NASCAR has this desire that they want to be in the Los Angeles or Southern California market. Okay, we get that desire. But you're going to turn around, you're going to pay whoever you have to pay, including USC, for renting the stadium out, ripping up the sod, laying down a track, which means you have to create the track out of dirt. Well, you have to asphalt the whole thing over. Then you have to put the race on. Then you have to rip all the asphalt up and lay new sod down, which USC is not going to complain about. It's all on NASCAR's dime. Mm-hmm. Here, they get the ability to do all the promotions for all the racing at Bowman Gray Stadium for what, the next 50 years, I think it is. It only makes sense that they would go ahead and do the race right there. Number one, it's an hour-ish away from the Charlotte area, fairly easy to get to, number one. Number two, takes you back to the roots of this particular sport, which they're doing that with North Wilkesboro as well. It just seems to make a whole heck of a lot more sense than spending all the money that they spent 3 years in a row at the LA Coliseum.
It makes too much sense. And I think that they should leave this alone for a little while. They
tend to do these things on 3-year thing. Okay, we're in the third year of the Chicago Street Course race. We're questioning whether there's going to be a fourth. They did 3 years at the LA Coliseum. I think probably this is going to be given the 3 years that it's at least worth. And by that point in time, maybe we'll have this short track package figure out. Maybe.
The way they do things nowadays, it's so convoluted, and you don't know what they're going to do from 1 minute to the next. One.
True. Yeah,
two,
I agree.
You're as well as this went over with the general, let's call it the general population, which consists of the fan base, the competitors, the teams, even some officials.
Right.
The city of Winston-Salem. As well as this went over, let it ride.
Absolutely.
Let it go, because when you've got just about every single competitor that ran in that race, that 200-lap race, that said on their respective social medias, the atmosphere was outstanding.
Electric.
Please, let's keep this going. We hope we're back.
Yeah.
Because not even, and this is where some wings of motorsports media get on my nerves. Not even before the green flag even dropped on Sunday, there was already social media posts talking about NASCAR exploring taking the Clash to Brazil.
Yeah.
Why are we even chirping, whispering, or thinking about that before the green flag even drops?
Yeah.
Let
Exactly.
the first event get done and then go from there. But
Yeah.
back to what I said, as well as it went over with the general population, leave it alone.
Absolutely.
Leave it alone.
Yeah. I agree.
And then as well as it went over, start looking. ARCA, that would be a really good place for ARCA race.
Oh, heck yeah.
That would even fit
Yeah.
my category and my levels of hosting a truck race.
Sure. Yeah. I don't think you put a cup points race there. Just because of the size of it, it's going to make it really difficult to field a full get a full field onto that track.
200 laps was spot on perfect. It was just right.
I think it was. And I'll give some credit here because I mentioned this on the show last Saturday in that Max deal. The Max streaming service cut a deal with Bleacher Report and NASCAR, and they have the camera views from the cars. And I was sharing some of that with you at picture-wise. And I went from the first half of the race, went to one of those 4-picture deals where I was watching 4 drivers, happened to be Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin, Noah Gragson, and Chase Briscoe. And the LED lights, once they turned them white, were fantastic. When they were red, it was very weird. But when they turned them back white and got it to normal, it was very, very cool. They had their growing pains. The telemetry was having some glitchy problems. They finally got that figured out about 25 laps in, and everything ran fine. And then they got to the halfway point, and I switched from the 4-way to a single driver aspect. And I'm following Chase Briscoe just because he used to drive the 14 car. You see a bunch of them up here behind me. So I'm following him, and I'm watching him until he gets wrecked out really, really quick. And then I started following Joey Logano because he was my pick that we did in our fantasy league. And I got to say, it was kind of fun to sit there and watch from inside the car, hear the car, be able to hear the in-car radio as well. The driver talking to the crew chief and the spotter talking about everything. It was very, very cool and pretty informative too. So that's definitely worth it. If you have the Max streaming service, or if you're looking for a different aspect, it might be worth it to get the Max streaming service.
They've got some growing pains to get through with that, but once they
Sure.
get through it, it's got the potential to be really, really good.
Yeah. Well, but it's the same growing pains, though, that NASCAR's got to deal with the short track package.
It's the same growing pains as some of the sanctioning body officials need to go through too.
Well,
and learn to quit fixing stuff that's not broken.
Point
Did I
taken.
say that out loud? Yes, I did.
Point taken.
But they gotta let things ride because this went over so well and was so good.
Yeah.
And it got back to the grassroots level of what the sport evolved from. Get there.
Sure. And to your point from a little bit earlier, stop trying to think so far ahead that you're thinking so far ahead that you haven't even dropped the green flag on your first one in this particular case. Let's let this one breathe a little bit. Let's let the atmosphere kind of take over. And everything that I've heard, everything that I've seen, social media, Sirius XM satellite radio, whatever it is that you want to talk about it, whoever's talking about it, you need to let this one breathe because I'm sure you feel the same way, Matt. You've got a success on your hands if you just let it go.
It has the capability. Well, not capability. It does have the ability to be a pretty good, solid little venue for the All-Star race. Give Wilkesboro a points-paying race. Take one of the dates from a second date from SMI track because SMI's got the rights to the All-Star, got the rights to the All-Star race.
Yeah, that's true.
They got North Wilkesboro.
Yeah,
take it, and I'm pretty sure that Marcus Smith would be willing to hey, we can shift things around this would be one heck of an all-star race.
Yeah, it would. And not really sure how Rockingham fits into the whole situation. Granted, this isn't a Cup situation yet, but if you want to get a Cup Series race at Rockingham, as we have said ever since this showed up on the schedule, if you want to get a Cup Series race at Rockingham for that Truck Series race and that Xfinity Series race that's coming up on Easter weekend, show up and show out. Because that's the way that you're going to stay on the schedule, and that's the way you're going to get a Cup Series race if that's what you're looking for. And who knows? Who knows? Maybe they could move if they're insistent, which they shouldn't be, upon moving the All-Star race out of Bowman Gray, move it to Rockingham.
I mean, it would put it back into the classification of going back to grassroots.
Sure, and that's exactly what they're doing right now. By the way, welcome to the guest host, which is Matt's dog.
Yeah, she decided to want to take a toy and play with it right in the middle of doing this.
Sure, I understand that.
Get it back to where this becomes a popular event again. And yes. I think after Sunday, it's on that path.
Yeah.
Let it breathe.
Yeah. I agree.
Let it get let it get under its belt another year.
Yeah.
Another year.
And for all those minimum. Two other things on this. Number one, I actually have to give credit to the NASCAR officials for not throwing an artificial caution there, trying to create drama with 10 laps to go. Thank you for not doing that.
Yeah, that is true.
And secondly, for all those people who are yelling and screaming that they'd like to see it back at Daytona, you didn't show up at Daytona. I've watched some of these races. You go onto the 2B NASCAR channel where they were replaying some of the clashes that were in the last couple of years at Daytona. Those stands are empty. That's why they moved it.
That's 17,000 at Bowman Gray, standing room only. Looked astronomically better than trying to fill up a 75,000 seat football stadium on an artificial racetrack, or it being out of place, out of a good time spot at Daytona, causing the crowd to be slim.
Exactly.
That 17,000 looked really good in a packed out facility for that.
Exactly.
Let it ride.
100%. All right. And then the other part of this here. The other thing that we wanted to talk about is also a NASCAR situation here where they have re-upped with Comcast Xfinity. Now, Xfinity obviously is the title sponsor of the Xfinity series, but not for long. We'll get back to that part of it because they actually did sign a long-term extension here that brings back or brings in the idea, brings back the idea of bonus points, which, okay, whatever. So fastest lap of the race, Cup Series, Truck Series, Xfinity Series, you get a bonus point at the end of the race. If you're running for the championship in that particular series, you get it. If you're not running for the championship, if you're a moonlighter, say, in the Trucks or the Xfinity Series, or you're a part-time driver, you don't get the point. Your owner does. So the team owner does. So this goes to the team owner championship and it goes to the driver championship as well. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. Make some incentive. Make it happen. Okay, whatever. Kyle Larson would have won the most of those last year at 5. Just looking at the history of it. That's fine. All good. And there's actually a charitable benefit at the end of the year. The driver with the most of the fastest lap awards throughout the course of the year in the Cup Series, they will give to the charity of that driver's choice $30,000 for the Cup Series. For Xfinity Series driver, it's $20,000 and $10,000 if you're a Truck Series driver. It's good stuff. And Comcast reserves the right to match it if it doesn't interfere with something that they do, however you want to put it. But I think the biggest story here is what we just mentioned. The deal is a long-term extension that keeps them as one of the premier partners with the Cup Series, which we've talked about them before. It's Coca-Cola, Bud Light, used to be Geico. They're not listed by anybody anymore. And Xfinity is going to continue to be there. But this is the last year that they're going to be the title sponsor of the Xfinity Series. Next year, it becomes effectively something else. And I get the feeling that this extension was NASCAR. begging Xfinity to give them a year to go find the next sponsor?
It's hard to say, but there's only one good solution to this right here. Busch
Okay.
Light and Busch, you know what to do.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what
I
to
think
do.
it would be the natural fit. I mean, we brought back Craftsman.
Yeah. I mean, so Busch Light, not Busch Light, Busch, you're on deck. You know what to do.
Yeah. I think it'd be a fantastic move on their part. It really would. It would be a fun thing. And again, it kind of goes back to that whole thing that we've been talking about. NASCAR seems to finally be recognizing, hey, we need to kind of get back to our roots a little bit, remember where we started from. And these are little nods to that. It was the Busch series, basically, from the moment that this particular series was conceived of and came into being in the early 1980s.
Yep.
That'd be the way to go.
Again, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So if somebody will pull their head out of the sand and do what needs to be done, that would start evolving the grassroots levels back, getting back to basics.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think if I'm the people that are in charge of NASCAR, and obviously I'm not, and you're not either, because we would have made decisions that we have made very clear would be very, very different from what has been happening over the last few years.
Right.
But if we were in charge of this, yeah, the first call I'd be making would be to the Anheuser-Busch company and saying, hey, listen, what are your thoughts on this? And could you be interested in maybe re-upping on this? And, you redo the deal. I get it that they're one of the premier partners for the Cup Series, but heck, Xfinity's been doing it for the past several years since they decided to go to this tiered sponsorship deal.
Yep.
Xfinity had been the title sponsor of the series and a premier partner for Cup. If Xfinity and Comcast can do it, you can't tell me that Anheuser-Busch can't afford to do that.
No, they absolutely can.
And like I said, if you want to rework the deal some.
Yep.
Spread it out over a longer period of time. But yeah, I think that it makes the most sense to do it. Coca-Cola might jump on it. I don't know. But it'd be weird to call it the Coca-Cola series.
Yeah, it would. It'd sound like you're talking about the iRacing series, Coca-Cola iRacing series, but
it would seem that way, wouldn't it?
Busch, you know what to do.
Yeah, that'd be the way to do it.
Yep.
Any problem with that whole situation of the bonus point? Everyone says, oh, well, you're just copycatting Formula One. Remember, Formula One dropped the fastest lap point after the 2024 season. IndyCar still does it, though. Is this, though, just NASCAR copycatting somebody else, or is this them trying to figure out a different way to kind of try and separate everybody up?
Sounds like it. Sounds like you're trying to copycat it. But if you're going to do that, bring back the bonus point for leading the lap.
Leading a lap or leading the most laps?
Leading a lap. You used to get a bonus point for leading.
You just want to do a lap, okay?
And you got 5 bonus points for leading the most laps.
Well, and that's what I was about to ask. Would you want to bring back both of those, or would you want to just?
If you want to bring that back, bring both of them back.
Okay, all right. And maybe at some point in time they will. I don't know. Again, this from time to time, NASCAR seems to just barge through the door and damn the torpedoes full speed ahead, and they'll deal with the ramifications later. And at other times, it seems like they're tiptoeing because they're worried about what eggshell they might break as they walk on them.
Right.
This one seems like that tiptoe as opposed to the barge through.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas they're sitting there talking about taking the Clash overseas to Brazil, and that's a barge through when you should be tiptoeing.
Stop worrying about trying to go international when the sport is internationally known already. Stop trying to go international. Stay within your base. Keep your base getting built up and build out from your base. Not saying we want to save the team's money. Do you think it's saving the team money that they're going to have to load a hauler onto a 747 cargo jet to go from North Carolina to Sao Paulo, Brazil, or to Germany or Tokyo?
Yeah.
No.
Or is NASCAR footing that bill? And I get the funny feeling that they're not going to foot that bill entirely.
Nope.
So, yeah, I mean, NASCAR is a North American sport. You want to go into Canada, go into Canada. You want to go down to Mexico, fine. You want to go down to Mexico, go ahead and do it. We're going to do that this year. It's largely, though, a North American sport. Formula One has long been a world traveling sport. We get that. IndyCar has, in my mind, a better argument to go to South America, because if you look at the drivers historically, yeah, you get a number of drivers from Argentina or Brazil or someplace down there. To me, they have a better argument to go to South America than NASCAR ever does.
They do. IndyCar has more of an argument than NASCAR.
Absolutely. Yeah. IndyCar's got a much bigger argument for it, and, leave it to them. Okay. You solidify where you are strongest, and you're strongest here in the United States of America. I'll tell you this, both IndyCar and Formula One are gunning for what NASCAR has. That's the number of viewers that NASCAR brings to the table in the Cup Series every single race on average every single year. Formula One and IndyCar are both highly envious of it. So is the NHRA and every other series that's out there, including Xfinity and the Truck Series. They'd love to have those number of viewers that the Cup Series brings in. Solidify that. That's what you need to be concentrating on. And they have made some steps in the right direction in recognizing their history, and I think taking seriously like the Netflix series that they had last year, which, yes, I get it, was a copycat somewhat of what Formula One did, but look at what it did for Formula One and look at what it did for NASCAR just last year. It seemed to rekindle some interest for some people and seemed to bring some new people into it who might have previously said, you know what, I don't care.
Yep. Exactly right.
It's an interesting situation to watch. There's no doubt about it. But we'll talk about these couple of things and kind of go a little bit more into it. And guess what? We've got a big 2-hour show coming up this Saturday. And then I get to bust loose and head to Charlotte. That's going to be interesting. Yeah. I'm going to play around with the National Motorsports Press Association and go to their Hall of Fame ceremony and some of the seminars that are going on there, something we haven't done in a few years. And it's something that we need to do a little bit more often. So, Matt and I are certainly going to work on that. In the meantime, we'll talk to you on Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time. Don't forget to join us right here or over there on CRN Live if you happen to be on the Jocks 94.5 TV YouTube page. We'll give you that. Either way, subscribe right down there. We appreciate it. Thank you to producer John. Thank you to Molly Robinson. And for Matt Nicholson, I'm Steve West. Thank you for checking out this latest edition of Crossed Flags.
You've been listening to Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. For more content like this, subscribe to CRN Live on YouTube, and you'll be set to catch the 2-hour live show every Saturday morning at 9 Eastern, 8 Central.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.